Let's face it, we're dealing with upheaval, uncertainty, and the unknown as creatives. Let's talk about that. Hey there, my name is a safe space. And chill for a bit. I'm of the mind that as a creative, we're a little more sensitive sometimes, I think, to things. And if you're here, I think that you might feel the same. Hello, I'm James Neely. I'm a creative with over 40 years experience in commercial and fine arts. And I've got a few tips and tricks that I'm hoping that I can share. If it helps anyone, I'm finding things rather unsettling as well. And I'm in hypervigilance mode like a lot of people. I mean, this is something that abuse victims go through. They just live in this, granted to a higher degree, but you have to remember we're talking about a group mind also experiencing this collectively. So it's not just you. I'm a bit older, and you learn to deal with things as it comes because you can't take it personally. Okay, let's get started, since what I'm going to talk about includes how precious your time and attention actually are and what we're going to do about that. First thing we need to do is establish a safe haven, somewhere you can just be you without being disturbed. You can let your hair down, your guard down. This can be in the basement. It can be in a larger pantry. It can be a corner in the dining area. It just depends on how you want to express in the space that you need. But a safe haven, a fortress of solitude, is prerequisite. Nature, you can even go out in nature. You have a favorite grove, somewhere you know you'll be safe, a beachfront, office. Um, just you need to have the ability to relax without fear, anxiety, or being disturbed. Next, we need to realize nothing is imminently coming to get you. Not now, not tonight. It's okay. Talked earlier about that hypervigilance. This is a state that isn't healthy. We need to have downtime. We're actually in a stress deficit state because we just haven't been able to relax. It's a constant barrage of information and news and worry and drama. So it depends on your level of sensitivity. And if you're like me at all, I have a foot in two different places as an artist, and I'm affected by it. I have to insulate myself. The second aspect of this is you need to realize that you can't take what's going on personally. This isn't about you. It's about what's going on in the world and the shifts. And these are cycles and paradigms that are going to happen. They've taken place before. They're going to happen again. And there's not a whole lot you can do. You exercise your civic duty if you can. You vote. You protest if you can. This isn't about sides. This is about dealing with the situation we're in. The thing that also we need to remember is that it's up to us what our reactions are to things. It seems to me that the idea is to remain in a state of being appalled, being outraged, being distracted by so many different outrageous things. And our reactions to those are what really matters, not the fact that they're happening. Yes, they're appalling. I'm not talking about ignoring them. It's a constant force-fed aspect to it, and we need to be able to have control over that valve to turn it off. It's that simple. We'll find out what happens in the news. It's not going to go anywhere. You'll get up to speed. I'm starting to limit my news intakes to maybe once a day, but this doesn't mean I'm ignoring it. Okay, then once we have a safe haven, place that we can create and express and do, then we need to get ourselves busy, because doing is better than stewing. We're talking about minimizing distractions, and quite honestly, by doing something, you are creating a true presence. You're not just being fed things and just on input zombie mode. When you're creating, it's a true presence. You're bringing something through. You're almost reversing that current in that way. You're manifesting something. And when you're all here doing this, it's a better feeling. If you're lucky, you can get what's called bliss or a flow state, and hours disappear, but you've got something to show for it. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that it's not really about the end result, it's about the journey. For everything that I've created, it's been about the journey. And then sometimes, even when it's called finished, the journey continues, because years later, I'm still finding things out about what's in them. So really the point we're getting at here is controlling, the idea of controlling what you can. You've created a space, you've controlled that. You can control a 1-by-1 drawing area. You can control a poem, a haiku. You can control maybe a dance number. You can control composing a piece of music. But we're talking about low commitment here, a place that you can retreat to when you need to. Not everyone is an artist, but everyone can be creative. You might call that semantics, but everyone has the capacity to think of something and manifest it one way or another. Creating a space and projects with low commitment creates a sense of progression. It creates a sense of self-worth. You don't have to plan a huge project. Like, I have projects that are half-assed done everywhere, but they're always in a state of somewhere. And I love that, because I can return to it when I want and pick it back up. Now, another thing that I like to do is I take time for input in a different manner, whereas I don't know about you, when I read, I get the whole movie in my head. I see these things. For inspiration, I tend to reach for the things that I like. It's kind of inputting a language my subconscious can talk back to me with. But this is something that I discovered in time, and you might find something like that happens for you. But what we're talking about here is creating the input as something that you control, a book or something that can assist you in pursuit of something that you might have as a goal or an idea or something that you want to express. That's when you would go and research. It depends. You get out of it what you put into it. So I tend to gravitate towards mythology and other things that stretch my imagination. And there's lessons involved in them usually too, rather than just kind of mindless binging. Don't get me wrong. I love some shows, and I tend to put them on as background noise when I'm engaged in something else. One of the other things that I like to do too is journaling, and I keep a sketchbook going. I have different sketchbooks for different reasons. The point is that you've got something at hand you can jot down, express with, but it's only for your eyes. You're not expected to show anyone. You're not out to impress anyone. This is for you, This is your safe haven, your bubble to work out ideas to their conclusion or failure. The idea is to keep exploring different outlets of expression, because you never know what you're going to be good at. You might be good at photography. You might be good at dance. You might be good at orchestral composition. You might be good at mathematics. And this brings me to one of the biggest points that kind of struck me recently, and it's the idea of something called spiritual currency. Paying attention and spending time. Distractions rob us of those very things all the time. So if we start to conserve energy, we might be able to channel that in other ways that cause less anxiety, or relieve those anxieties, or help us to identify those anxieties. You control the input. You control the output. This is the inner limits instead of the outer limits. One of the aspects to realizing that this isn't about you and to not take it personally is that once you start to get a view of the larger picture as a process that humanity is going through, actually, you realize that it's about trusting the process. We're all along for the ride. We don't really have a choice. So again, it's how do we react to these things? It's up to us. Okay, so that brings me to another point, something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is sort of like the ability to literally rewire the brain. So you can literally train your mind to look for the good. You start seeing the good. It doesn't mean you don't see the bad. The thing you think about is what the energy goes to. So what do you think about the most? Even fear. You're giving energy to that. So we're talking about literally changing your perspective, what we're in the context of what we're talking about. Your outlook is literally altered because you're looking for the good things. In the end, what I'm kind of hinting at is transcending dependency on those distractions, the fear of missing out on whatever. And instead of fighting it, if you fight against it, if you push against something, it's going to want to swing back. That's just how it is. That's nature. If you can transcend that, focusing on more constructive things, you tend to outgrow that need. It doesn't go away. You're just less dependent on it because you're occupied in a higher mental occupation. Now, this is kind of alchemical, but I'll come back to that in a bit here, I promise. You need to find your expression, you find your bliss. This is a Joseph Campbell quote, and it's well worth looking him up. We're going to cover him at some point in some of these videos. He was a big deal in my formative 80s. Alchemy, the basis being transmutations of states of energy, matter, or thought, emotional or mental. The principles are echoed up and down the scales. You're attempting an alchemical transmutation. You're taking a bad situation or an anxiety, which is an energy. It's an emotion. E is energy. Motion. It's in motion. An emotion, and you're trying to take it from something destructive into something constructive. That's simple alchemy. It's either going to vent those frustrations constructively. We're going to transmute that energy into something with a better intent, or we're going to channel that energy into something that is for good or for bad in the end. We have to reap those consequences or benefits, but it's up to us since we're responsible for that energy. This next chapter is called The Pendulum and the Telos, and we're talking about duality, and we're talking about an aspect of cause and effect. There's also the cyclic nature of things involved. When you start to get a sense of deeper time, I start to think in terms of what's going on with humanity. These things are appalling to me, but I need to try and understand the why. What brought us to this? I've tried to come up with my own working models of the way things are. Cause and effect is as simple as if you don't put oil in your car, eventually your engine will seize up. Don't turn off the tap. You're going to run up your water bill. There's a cause and a clear effect. Sometimes it takes time. This also goes into the realms of what some folks call karma. So what comes around goes around eventually. So there is some hope in karma, or the controversial aspect of reincarnation, which I personally ascribe to. Karma works out. So if I was to try and define the teleological or the telos, the telos is a recently new concept for me because cause and effect sort of hit a limit, and it doesn't explain the fact that the pendulum is done swung right off the fulcrum. The telos, or the aspect of the teleological, is an aspect of nature, fulfilling aspects of itself that it needs to, and it doesn't have any regard for the aspect of duality of good or bad. Those things are relative to us. If the Earth decides that it wants to change all of its weather patterns, or if we've had an impact on that one way or another, it is, for good or bad. It doesn't have a sense of right or wrong. There is no duality. Cause and effect implies a dual nature. The telos simply is. One of the aspects of this is the idea of taking this energy that we're all feeling and using that as a leverage point to initiate a journey inward. Times of upheaval and uncertainty like this, people start exploring with it. Something also that can affect people is a sense of something much, much, much larger than yourself. There's some kind of pull from within that you have to heed, you have to pay attention to it. We feel a need to find a master or a teacher, and the teacher is within. Then look inward rather than outward. That doesn't say you can't aspire, but choose your masters and your role models very carefully. They're not perfect. Realizing that you're not your emotions nor your thoughts. You're the observer. Finding your center. Perspective is everything. If you can find your center, then you can start to analyze the things around you, whether they're traumas, parts of your own shadow natures, aspects that you feel guilty about. Once you achieve your center, then you can start to get that calm regard for these things rather than judging yourself. You can experience them from a point of acceptance. And these are the things that are being used against you. They're your weaknesses, they're your traumas, they're your vices that others can take advantage of. Finding your center is a shift in the paradigm view. You can self-examine, not criticize. We're talking about true shadow work here. So putting it all together, over the Temple of Delphi, there's a famous saying, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called know thyself. And what this is implying is accountability. It implies the ability for critical thinking. It implies the ability to own your mistakes. It implies responsibility. Journal. Get your self-reflective aspects going in that regard. Then you can look back and you can actually track progress. Now, the natural byproduct from all of this, it's tough work, but you gain self-confidence, sense of self-worth, you gain a sense of progression. You've got something to show for your time. Once you understand where that center is, too, you can return to it anytime you want. You have to remember you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're the observer. That stuff happens. That's here and here in the gut. What you want to be is here in the heart. It's actually, there's a separate nervous system they've just recently discovered that governs just the heart, and it works independently of the mind. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about establishing barriers. We're talking about finding modes of expression, low commitment. We're talking about responsibility and accountability so that you can be manipulated less. In the end, you've got self-confidence and you'll end up able to filter things a little better, not react to things when they're meant to keep you appalled and outraged. It's a terrible waste of energy, to be honest. Hey, I hope something here helped, even if it's a validation or a verification is perceived somehow to something you've been thinking, or if it helps you get grounded somehow. I'm not a therapist. If you really need help, please go find professional help because, we need you and your light matters and we need your creative works. We know there's more work to do, but right now we need to establish a basis in order to be able to do that work. Sometimes maybe this is the decision to actually start that work. If it gives you the impetus to maybe go ahead and make that choice, then I'm glad. You might have some ideas too. Hey, feel free to share them in the comments. You might help somebody. I appreciate if you'd like, share, and subscribe. Hey, thank you for spending your time here and paying attention. I hope to see you again, my friend.